ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
Hi, y'all. A thought. Somewhere along the way, a lot of people were taught that taking pride in their own work was something to be ashamed of. So they keep their heads down, they keep building, they keep helping everyone else succeed. And when something good finally happens, they shrug it off like it was nothing. But there's an important difference people forget to talk about. Arrogance says you're better than everyone. Healthy pride simply says you recognize the work you've done. It's the quiet moment where you look back and acknowledge the late nights, the learning curves, the mistakes, the persistence, and the courage it took to keep going when things weren't easy. Recognizing your own progress doesn't diminish anyone else. It doesn't make you selfish. It makes you honest. Growth, it deserves to be acknowledged, not hidden. So if you've been building something, learning something, creating something, or even just pushing yourself through challenges that people don't see, take a moment and recognize it. You don't have to brag. You don't have to shout it from the rooftops, but you are allowed to say to yourself, I did that, and it mattered. That kind of pride isn't a flaw. It's the fuel that keeps people moving forward. Now, come on, y'all. It's Monday, Petty Monday. Let's get into this.
A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited, from the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling, when she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback.
All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. It is Monday, Petty Monday, my friends, and we're about to have some fun. So, AskABee, this is the place where we take real stories, real emotions, and sometimes a little bit of chaos from everyday life and try to make sense of it all together. Now, if you've been here before, you already know that each day of the week has its own theme, and Mondays around here are known as Petty Monday. Pardon me, Monday, Petty Monday. And yes, I've kind of sampled a musician after that one, Sunday, Bloody Sunday, Petty Monday. I know, I'm a dork. Get over it. Listen, this is where we talk about those moments when people let their frustration, their hurt feelings, or their bruised egos take over, and suddenly things get just a little bit messy. But today, we're doing Monday, Petty Monday, a little bit differently, because instead of starting with a story right away, we're going to look at something that has been capturing petty emotions for decades, and that is music. That's my thing, y'all. Got to. Listen, music has always been one of the most. Tim Hart, hello. Hi, how are you? Happy to have you. So, music has always been one of the most powerful ways people process their feelings. When relationships fall apart, when someone feels betrayed, when someone realizes they've been hurt or treated unfairly, artists often turn to those emotions into songs. Sometimes those songs are sad, sometimes they're reflective, and sometimes they're incredibly petty in the most best possible way. And if we're honest, some of the greatest songs ever written came directly from moments when people or someone was upset with somebody else. Okay. Today, we're going to take a little journey through a few of those moments in music history. We're going to start by looking at some classic songs from earlier decades where artists were already throwing lyrical shade long before the internet existed. Then we'll move into the late 1990s and early 2000s where breakup anthems became louder and more emotional and incredibly relatable for an entire generation of listeners. After that, we're going to talk about one of the most fascinating situations in rock, the complicated breakup inside Fleetwood Mac that turned into some of the most legendary songs ever recorded. And finally, we'll wrap things up with little Alanis Morissette, my girl, whose album Jagged Little Pill brought a level of emotional honesty and raw storytelling that helped redefine rock music during the 1990s. The thing that makes all of these songs interesting isn't just the music itself, it's the stories behind the songs. These songs came from real people dealing with real emotions, and when artists put those emotions into their music, look, listeners often recognize pieces of their own experiences in those lyrics. That connection is part of what makes music so powerful. So, today, we're going to explore a few of those songs and the stories behind them. And along the way, we might discover that sometimes the most unforgettable music comes from moments when emotions are running high and someone decides to turn that feeling into a song. All right, let me get this first one loaded up here. I'm excited about these stories because, somebody had to do something to these people to get these songs, right? Sorry. Not working. Okay, we shall try again. I just love it when my tools work correctly. And why is that? I'm sorry, give me one moment, please. A copy. And it won't. It's just one of those days, y'all. Nope, hold up. Okay. Now we got it. Maybe. Or not. Goodness. I hate it when my tools don't work right. You're such a tool, StreamYard. Okie dokie. Now we're going to try this one more time. Now, I'm going to scoot over here because I do have some pictures. Yeah. All right. Our first subject, Carly Simon, You're So Vain. And what is that mess sitting there on my desktop? I'll just do that because that's not what's supposed to be there. Pardon me. You're So Vain song. This song, You're So Vain, is one of the most famous examples of subtle music shade ever recorded. Bet you didn't know that, huh? And part of the reason is it has lasted so long is because the song works on several levels at the same time. When it was released in 1972, way back when I was born, it immediately caught the public's attention, not just because the melody was catchy, but because the lyrics sounded incredibly personal. Like listeners were overhearing a story about a very specific person. The song describes a man who is charming and confident on the surface, but deeply self-absorbed underneath. Someone who walks into a room assuming everyone is paying attention to him. And then comes in the line that made the song legendary. You're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. Yeah, that lyric turned the entire track into a cultural puzzle because people instantly started trying to figure out who Carly Simon was talking about. You know it's true. I don't care who you are. You love gossip. Over the years, fans and journalists have suggested a long list of possible inspirations, including actors, musicians, and celebrities that Carly Simon knew during the early 1970s. For a long time, though, she kept the answer mostly to herself, which only made the mystery bigger and made people want to hear that song more. Eventually, she confirmed that actor Warren Beatty was at least part of the inspiration behind the song. But she also explained that the lyrics were not written about just one person. Instead, the character in the song represents a type of personality, someone so convinced of their own importance that they assume every story must revolve around them. You know the ones. That idea is what makes the song so clever, though, because the insult itself is built into the structure of the lyric. If someone believes the song is about them, they are basically proving Carly Simon's point. Musically, the track is also memorable because of its smooth production and the layered vocal harmonies that create a polished sound while the lyrics quietly deliver their sting. Another interesting detail about the recording is that Mick Jagger actually sang background vocals on the chorus, something many listeners didn't even realize for years. The combination of that polished musical arrangement and the sharp lyrics helped the song climb the charts quickly, and it became one of the defining hits of the early 1970s. But what really keeps the song alive decades later is the attitude behind it. Carly Simon doesn't sound furious or emotional in the recording. Instead, she sounds calm, confident, and almost amused by the situation she's describing. I know I would be. That tone gives the song a feeling of emotional clarity, like someone looking back on a relationship after the drama has already passed and finally recognizing the truth about the other person. That moment of recognition is something many listeners relate to because most people eventually encounter someone whose ego dominates every conversation and every relationship. The song captures the moment when someone finally stops making excuses for that behavior and simply calls it out for what it is. That's part of why the track has remained such a powerful piece of songwriting. It's not just about one famous person from the 1970s, it's about a personality type that exists in every generation. So the clever writing, the unforgettable chorus, and the mystery surrounding its inspiration all combined to turn You're So Vain into one of the most iconic songs ever written about ego and relationships. And in a way, the song still plays the same trick on listeners today that it did when it first came out. Because every time someone hears it, they still find themselves wondering the same thing audiences asked back in 1972. Who exactly was Carly talking about? Now, Linda Ronstadt, You're No Good. I know y'all know that song. Listen, Linda's version of You're No Good became one of the defining recordings of the 1970s, but the story behind the song actually started earlier than that. The song itself was originally written in the early 1960s by songwriter Clint Ballard Jr., and it had been recorded by other artists before Ronstadt ever touched it. But when Linda Ronstadt released her version in 1974 on the album Heart Like a Wheel, she transformed the track into something far more powerful. Her version climbed all the way to number one on the charts. Pardon me. And helped establish her as one of the most important voices in rock. And pop music during that decade, well, yeah. What makes Ronstadt's performance so memorable is the emotional confidence she brings to the song. The lyrics describe someone finally realizing that the person they once trusted has been hurting them all along. Instead of begging for love or trying to repair the relationship, the narrator reaches a moment of clarity and decides enough is enough. The central message of the song is simple but incredibly strong. You're no good for me. That line carries the weight of someone who has finally stopped blaming themselves for the problems in a relationship and has started recognizing the truth about the other person's behavior. In many ways, the song captures a universal moment that people experience in relationships. The moment when confusion turns into understanding. At first, someone might try to make excuses for the person they care about, hoping things will improve or believing that love will somehow fix the situation. But eventually, there comes a point where reality becomes, or impossible to ignore. So I think Linda's vocal performance captures that turning point beautifully. Her voice doesn't sound defeated or heartbroken. Instead, it carries a sense of strength and finality, like someone who has already made their decision and is no longer willing to tolerate being treated poorly. That confidence is what turned the song into an anthem for many listeners, particularly women in the 1970s who were beginning to see more artists expressing independence and emotional honesty in popular music. So, another reason the recording stands out is the arrangement itself. The track opens with a haunting electric piano riff that immediately sets a dramatic tone before the band kicks in with powerful groove. That musical build mirrors the emotional journey of the lyrics, moving from quiet reflection to full confidence by the time the chorus arrives. And Ronstadt's voice sits right at the center of that arrangement, strong and unmistakable, delivering each line with conviction. Over time, the song became one of her signature performances and helped cement her reputation as one of the most influential female vocalists of her generations. Beyond its chart success, You're No Good represents a larger shift in popular music during the 1970s when artists began embracing more personal storytelling and emotional realism in their songs instead of portraying relationships as perfect romances. Songs like this, they acknowledge that love can also involve disappointment, frustration, and the courage to walk away from someone who doesn't treat you the way you deserve. That honesty is part of what makes the song still resonate decades later. People continue to recognize themselves in that moment of clarity when someone finally realizes that holding on to the wrong relationship is doing more harm than good. Linda's version of You're No Good captured that feeling perfectly, turning a moment of personal realization into one of the most memorable breakup songs ever. And it was a good one too. You know it was. I still love that song. All right, forgive me. Loading up again. All righty. The next one, you're going to love this one because I know y'all know this song. And if you don't know this song, then honey, you need to. Okay. Prince, Darling Nikki. Come on. Yes, I'm going to bring it out there. When people talk about Prince and the impact he had on music, one of the things that always comes up is how fearless he was as an artist. You know what? Prince never seemed interested in playing it safe. He pushed boundaries constantly, whether that meant experimenting with sound, challenging expectations about image and performance, or writing lyrics that made people stop and pay attention. So, one song that perfectly shows that side of Prince is Darling Nikki, which appeared on his 1984 album, Purple Rain. Now, Purple Rain is already one of the most iconic albums in rock and pop history. And you know, I have one in my little shelf over there. I promise you that. And it's packed with massive hits like When Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy. But Darling Nikki stands out because of the reaction it created when people first heard it. The song tells the story of a mysterious woman named Nikki and a brief encounter that is described in bold, provocative language. Pardon me. Okay. For many listeners, in the early 1980s, that level of lyrical honesty was shocking. It was. Popular music had certainly explored the themes of romance and attraction before, but Prince delivered the story in a way that felt raw and, yeah, that's a word, direct and unapologetic. The track quickly became controversial, especially among parents who were concerned about the kind of material their children might be hearing on the radio or on albums. In fact, Darling Nikki became one of the songs that helped spark a much larger national conversation about explicit lyrics in popular music. That conversation eventually led to the creation of the parental advisory, warning labels that began appearing on album covers later in the decade. Now, what makes the situation interesting is that Prince himself wasn't necessarily trying to start a political debate about censorship. He was simply creating art the way he always had, telling stories through music without filtering his ideas to make other people comfortable. That willingness to follow his own creative instincts is one of the reasons Prince became such an influential figure in the music history. Musically, the track also shows Prince's incredible versatility, right? The arrangement blends rock guitar with funk rhythms and a slight darker tone that fits the rebellious attitude of the lyrics. Prince was known for playing many of the instruments on his recordings himself, and his control over the sound of the music allowed him to shape the atmosphere of the song exactly the way he imagined it. His vocal delivery moves between storytelling and performance, drawing listeners into the narrative while maintaining the theatrical energy that made his music so distinctive. Beyond the controversy, Darling Nikki represents something important about about Prince's artistic identity. He believed music should provoke emotion and reaction, and it does, doesn't it? Whether people loved the song or were shocked by it, they were paying attention, and that attention kept the conversation about the music alive. Over time, the track became recognized not just as a controversial moment in his music history, but as another example of Prince refusing to compromise his creative voice. When listeners revisit Purple Rain today, Darling Nikki still stands out as one of the album's boldest moments, a reminder that Prince built his career by challenging expectations and trusting his instincts as a storyteller. That fearless approach to songwriting helped him become one of the most influential musicians of his generation, and it's a big part of why his music continues to inspire artists and listeners decades after it was first released. All right, we are going to load up some more here because I'm not stopping. Are you stopping? I think we're good. We can still keep going, right? All righty. Now, our next band, no doubt, Don't Speak. When people think about breakup songs from the 1990s, one of the first tracks that almost always comes to mind is Don't Speak by No Doubt, because it captured heartbreak in a way that felt incredibly real to listeners. The song was released in 1996 on the band's album Tragic Kingdom, and it quickly became one of the most successful songs of the decade. And let me tell you, when I go to karaoke, I hit that one good. Look, what made the track especially powerful was the story behind it. At the time, the song was written, uh, lead singer Gwen Stefani and bassist Tony had just ended a long-term relationship. The two of them had been together for years while the band was still struggling to break through in the music industry. So the breakup wasn't just a private moment between two people, it happened inside the band itself. That meant they were still rehearsing together, recording together, and eventually performing together on stage while processing the emotional aftermath of the relationship ending. Don't Speak grew out of that experience. Gwen Stefani originally started writing the song as a faster track, but as the lyrics developed, the band realized the emotional tone of the story called for something more vulnerable. The final version became a slower, more reflective song built around Stefani's voice and the emotional honesty of the lyrics. The line, "Don't speak. I know just what you're saying." It captures the moment when two people already understand the truth about what's happening between them, but aren't quite ready to say it out loud. That feeling is something many listeners recognize immediately because it reflects a very common moment in relationships when both people sense that the end is coming, but neither one wants to face the final conversation yet. What made the song even more powerful was the fact that audiences knew the story behind it. Fans realized that every time No Doubt performed Don't Speak live, Gwen Stefani was essentially singing about her breakup while Tony stood on stage beside her playing bass. That added a level of emotional tension that made the performance feel authentic rather than theatrical. Crazy, isn't it? The audience wasn't just hearing a fictional story. They were witnessing two people who had actually lived through the situation described in the song. Musically, the track also stood out because of its simplicity. The arrangement leaves a lot of space around the vocals, allowing Stefani's voice to carry the emotional weight of the lyrics. Instead of relying on heavy instrumentation, the song builds its intensity through the gradual rise of the melody and the sincerity of the performance. Pardon me. Okay, so when the chorus arrives, it feels both powerful and fragile at the same time, which is exactly how heartbreak often feels in real life. The song became a massive international hit, topping charts in multiple countries and dominating radio play throughout the late 1990s. Hi, Patty, friend. Love you, honey. Thank you. So, even decades later, it remains one of the most recognizable breakup songs ever recorded. Part of its lasting appeal came from the fact that it doesn't rely on anger or revenge to tell its story. Instead, it captures the quieter side of heartbreak, the moment when two people realize their relationship is ending, even though part of them wishes things could have turned out differently. Don't Speak showed that vulnerability could be just as powerful as rage when it came to songwriting. And the honesty of that message is what allowed the song to connect with millions of listeners around the world. Now, I'm going to take a quick little break and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about another one. I've fixed up the video just a little bit. Just a little bit.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson, every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns to power unseen. So let Bertha spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss Beat doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling when she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame, got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free, it's a love note to the world sign. Boss B. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss be rising, BBTV shining, her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling when she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss be rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
Not without a mic, we're not, huh? We're back. All right, our next artist is not that one. 3 Days Grace. I hate everything about you. Listen, when 3 Days Grace released I Hate Everything About You in 2003, it quickly became one of the defining rock songs of the early 2000s because it captured a feeling that many people experience in relationships but rarely admit aloud. The track appeared on the band's self-titled debut album and helped introduce the Canadian rock group to a massive audience almost overnight. What made the song resonate so strongly with listeners was the emotional contradiction of the center of the lyrics. Instead of describing a simple breakup or a clear villain in the relationship, the song explores the uncomfortable reality that love and frustration can exist at the same time. The narrator in the song feels deeply connected to the other person, yet at the same time feels overwhelmed by the arguments, the tension, and the emotional exhaustion that the relationship creates. That push and pull between attraction and resentment is what gives the song its emotional weight. Lead singer Adam once explained that the inspiration for the song came from observing relationships where two people care about each other but keep hurting each other in the process. So creating a cycle that becomes difficult to escape. That idea is reflected in the structure of the song itself, where the emotion versus Oughta, stop, please. where the where the verses described the emotional conflict building inside the relationship, and the score explodes with blunt confession. I hate everything about you. Why do I love you? That line captures the central tension of the entire track because it acknowledges something many people recognize in their own lives. Relationships are not always clean or logical. Sometimes people remain connected even when they know the situation is unhealthy. Musically, the song amplifies that emotional struggle with a heavy guitar driven arrangement that moves between quieter moments and explosive choruses. Now, the opening guitar riff immediately sets a darker tone. And as the song builds, the instrumentation becomes more intense, mirroring the emotional escalation described in the lyrics. Adam's vocal performance also plays a major role in the song's impact. His voice moves between controlled storytelling and raw frustration, allowing listeners to feel the emotional pressure building throughout the whole track. When the chorus finally hits, the energy releases in a way that feels cathartic, almost like someone finally admitting a truth they have been trying to ignore. That sense of emotional honesty is what helped the song become such a powerful anthem for many listeners during the early 2000s. So uh, rock music during that period often explored themes of internal struggle and complicated relationships and emotional vulnerability. And I Hate Everything About You fit perfectly into that landscape. The track received a healthy radio airplay and became the band's breakthrough hit. Otto, get up here, stop. Oh my gosh. I just love dogs and I just lost my spot. I'm sorry. This dog's driving me today. Let me tell you. Thank you, dog. Love you. Ugh. So, okay. 3 Days Grace, they created a song that felt brutally honest. It didn't try to present a neat solution or a happy ending. Instead, it captured the messy emotional truth that sometimes the person you care about the most can also be the person who drives you the most crazy. 30 years, y'all. 30 years. He knows I love him. And that complicated mixture of love and anger is something many listeners instantly understood when they heard the song for the first time. I mean, yeah. All right, the next one, we're going to get off the rock track just a tad, not much. Listen, Kelly Clarkson, Since You've Been Gone. Come on, y'all. When Kelly Clarkson released Since You've Been Gone in 2014, it quickly became one of the defining pop rock breakup songs of the decade because it flipped the emotional script on what listeners expected from heartbreak music. Instead of focusing on sadness or regret, the song celebrates the moment someone realizes their life has actually improved after a relationship ended. The track appeared on Clarkson's second album, Breakaway, and marked a major turning point in her career, showing that she was not just a television competition winner, but a powerful recording artist capable of delivering one of the biggest anthems of the 2000s. The song was written by producers Max Martin and Dr. Luke, who originally imagined it being recorded by a rock band before Kelly Clarkson heard the demo and immediately connected with it. She recognized that the message of the song captured something many people feel after escaping a relationship that held them back. Instead of dwelling on heartbreak, the lyrics focused on rediscovering independence and confidence. The opening lines describe the moment when someone realizes that the silence after a breakup is not painful but freeing. The that the absence of the other person actually allows them to breathe again. Petty? No, I don't think so. As the song builds towards the chorus, the emotional shift becomes even clearer. When Clarkson belts out the line, "Since you've been gone, I can breathe for the first time," the song transforms from a breakup story into a declaration of personal freedom. That moment became one of the most memorable choruses, in modern pop music because listeners recognize the feeling instantly. Almost everyone has experienced the relief that can come after leaving a relationship that was draining or unhealthy. Musically, the track blends pop melodies with a rock edge, driven by loud guitars and explosive drums that give the chorus its huge energy. So, Kelly's vocal performance is also a major reason the song became so successful. Her voice carries both power and emotion, allowing the track to feel triumphant rather than bitter. And instead of sounding angry or wounded, she sounds liberated, like someone who has finally stepped out of a situation that no longer controlled her life. That shift in perspective helped the song resonate with millions of listeners who were tired of breakup songs that only focused on pain. "Since You've Been Gone" became an anthem for people reclaiming their confidence and recognizing their own worth. The song quickly climbed the charts around the world and won a Grammy Award for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance, solidifying Kelly's reputation as one of the strongest vocalists of her generation. It also influenced a wave of pop singers. I'm sorry, one more second. No, that sucks. All right. Now we're going to get into it a little bit more here because this one's a different story. Okay. Fleetwood Mac. We have 3 songs from them we're going to talk about on this one. So, Fleetwood Mac's "Go Your Own Way," "Dreams," and "Silver Springs." When people talk about legendary breakup stories in the music history, few stories are as famous as the emotional chaos inside Fleetwood Mac during the making of the Rumors album in the mid 1970s. The band was going through an incredible amount of personal turmoil at the time. 2 couples, not one, 2 couples inside the group were breaking up at the same time. Christine and John McVie were divorcing, and Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham were ending a long and complicated relationship of their own. Yet somehow, instead of destroying the band, all of that emotional tension became the fuel that produced one of the most successful albums ever recorded. Rumors would go on to sell tens of millions of copies worldwide. And much of its power comes from the fact that the songs are not fictional stories. They are emotional snapshots of real people processing heartbreak while still standing on the same stage together. One of the most famous songs from the moment is "Go Your Own Way," written and sung by Lindsey Buckingham. The energy of the song immediately reflects the emotional state he was in when he wrote it. The guitars are sharp, the rhythm feels restless, and the vocal delivery carries a mixture of frustration and determination. Lyrically, the song expresses the pain of watching a relationship fall apart and realizing that both people are heading in different directions. The chorus, it delivers the central message very clearly. If someone wants to live their life differently, then they should go their own way. What makes the story fascinating is that Stevie Nicks strongly disagreed with some of the lyrics in the song because she felt they portrayed her unfairly. She reportedly asked Buckingham to change certain lines, but he refused. That meant when the band performed the song live, Stevie Nicks was standing just a few feet away on stage while Buckingham sang words that she knew were about their breakup. It created a kind of emotional tension that audiences could feel, even if they didn't know all the details behind the scenes. But the story doesn't end there, because Stevie Nicks also wrote her own response from the breakup for the breakup in the form of another Fleetwood Mac classic, the song Dreams. So, pardon me. Um, Dreams moves in a completely different emotional direction, right? The song has a calm, almost hypnotic rhythm built around a steady drum beat and soft guitar textures that allow Nick's voice to float gently above the music, right? Instead of anger, the lyrics carry a sense of reflection and acceptance. One of the most famous lines in the song: players only love you when they're playing. That suggests that Stevie had come to understand something about the nature of their relationship. Sometimes two people care deeply about each other but still want different things out of life. That realization can be painful, but it can also bring clarity. So Stevie later explained that she wrote Dreams alone in a small recording room while the rest of the band was working in other parts of the studio. She sat at a piano and began shaping the song quietly, turning her emotions into lyrics that would eventually become one of the most successful songs Fleetwood Mac would ever release. Dreams would go on to reach number one on the Billboard charts, becoming the band's only number one single in the United States. The contrast between Go Your Own Way and Dreams is fascinating because they represent two completely different emotional perspectives on the same breakup. One song expresses anger and frustration, while the other reflects and accepts. But there is a third piece to this story that many fans consider even more emotional, and that is the Silver Springs. So, Stevie originally wrote Silver Springs during the Rumors sessions and strongly believed it belonged on the album. Unfortunately, the band ultimately decided to leave it off the record because of time constraints on the vinyl release. That decision disappointed Stevie deeply because she felt the song captured an important part of the emotional story she was trying to tell. Silver Springs is more direct and intense than Dreams. The lyrics describe the lingering emotional connection that remains after a relationship ends. Instead of calmly accepting the breakup, the song expresses the idea that the memory of that love will continue to follow both people throughout their lives. One of the most powerful moments in the song promises that the singer's voice will follow the other person forever, suggesting that even if they move on, the emotional impact of the relationship will never completely disappear. Kind of like Dolly's I Will Always Love You, right? So over the years, Silver Springs became a favorite among Fleetwood Mac fans, especially when the band began performing it live during later tours. One performance in particular became legendary because of the way Stevie Nicks sang directly towards Lindsey Buckingham during the final lines of the song. The moment felt less like a performance and more like a conversation between two people who had once shared something very real and complicated. When you look at these three songs together, Go Your Own Way, Dreams, and Silver Springs, they tell a remarkable story about how art can emerge from emotional conflict. Lindsey Buckingham expressed the anger and confusion he felt after the breakup, and Stevie Nicks answered with reflection, acceptance, and lingering emotion. And all of it happened while the band continued to record, tour, and perform together in front of audiences around the world. The result was music that felt authentic because it came directly from real experiences. Fleetwood Mac didn't hide their emotions during that time. They turned them into songs, and those songs became part of one of the most successful and influential albums in rock history. Rumors remains a powerful reminder that sometimes the most compelling music comes from moments when life itself becomes a story. Now we have one final artist that I'm going to load up, hopefully, with no problem. Yay. And that is, yes, Alanis Morissette. And the first song, because I have three of hers as well. You Oughta Know. Perfect and ironic. By the mid 1990s, rock music was about to experience a shift in emotional honesty. And a huge part of that shift came from Alanis Morissette and her breakthrough album, Jagged Little Pill. When the album was released in 1995, it didn't just introduce a new artist to the world. It introduced a voice that sounded raw, direct, and unapologetically real in a way that mainstream audio or radio had not heard from many female artists before. The first song that truly explodes into the public conversation was You Oughta Know. When listeners first heard the lyrics, the reaction was immediate because the song didn't hide its anger or soften its message. The lyrics described the aftermath of a painful breakup, and instead of quietly reflecting on the relationship, Alanis confronts the situation head on. The emotion in her voice is intense, almost explosive, and the lyrics are delivered with the kind of honesty that made many people feel like they were hearing someone saying the things they themselves had wanted to say after a difficult relationship ended. The song also gained attention because people immediately began speculating about who the lyrics might have been about. I mean, let's face it, Alanis has been in the limelight for a lot longer than her music, which only fueled its popularity even further, right? Musically, the track blends alternative rock energy with a powerful vocal performance that shifts between the vulnerability and the anger, capturing the complicated emotions that often follow heartbreak. For many listeners, the song felt refreshing because it allowed anger to exist openly in a genre where female artists had often been expected to present softer emotional perspectives. But Jagged Little Pill, it wasn't only about explosive emotion. Another song from the album, and it was kind of a tidbit, it was never really on the radio that much, was Perfect. It showed a very different side of Alanis and her songwriting. While You Oughta Know focuses on the anger that can follow a breakup, Perfect explores the pressure many people feel to live up to expectations placed on them by parents, society, or even themselves. The lyrics describe a child growing up under constant pressure to succeed. I think a lot of us can probably relate to that, to achieve and to never make mistakes. Instead of celebrating perfection, the song quietly questions what the pressure can do to someone emotionally. So Alanis delivers the lyrics with a softer vocal tone that allows the message to feel reflective rather than confrontational. And many listeners connected deeply with the theme because the struggle to meet expectations is something that resonates across generations. Perfect showed that Alanis's songwriting could move beyond relationship drama into broader emotional territory, exploring the complicated experiences people face while growing up and trying to find their own identity. Then there is Ironic, which became one of the most recognizable songs of the entire decade. The track has a different tone from the other two songs because instead of focusing on anger or personal pressure, It explores the strange twists and contradictions that life sometimes delivers. The lyrics describe a series of situations where events unfold in ways that feel frustratingly backwards, moments where the outcome seems to contradict what people expected would happen. Whether it's rain on a wedding day or a free ride that appears when you've already paid, the song captures the feeling that life occasionally has a sense of humor that people don't fully appreciate in the moment. I love irony. Let me tell you, I love irony. The melody is bright and memorable, and Alanis's conversational delivery makes the song feel almost like a series of observations about the unpredictability of everyday life. Over time, the song became a cultural reference point, with people frequently debating the meaning of irony itself while still singing along to the chorus. What makes these three songs so interesting when placed together is how they reveal different emotional dimensions of the same artist. You Oughta Know expresses anger and confrontation after a painful breakup. Perfect reflects on the pressure and expectations that shape people as they grow up, and Ironic steps back to observe the strange unpredictability of life itself. Together, they show why Jagged Little Pill became such an influential album during the 1990s. Alanis wasn't simply writing catchy songs. She was expressing complicated emotions in the way that felt honest and relatable to millions of listeners. That honesty helped redefine what mainstream rock radio could sound like, opening the door for artists who were willing to explore vulnerability and frustration and reflection, all within the same body of work. Even decades later, those songs still resonate because they capture experiences that many people recognize from their own lives, reminding us that music often becomes powerful when it reflects the real emotional complexity of being human. Wow, that was a heck of a lineup, don't you think? And all very much loved by me. And let me tell you, I still listen to Carly Simon, y'all. I'll bet you my Patty friend does too. So, okay, today we spent some time looking at how powerful emotions can turn into powerful music. And one of the most interesting things about all of these songs is that they came from very real experiences, relationships ending, right? Expectations falling apart, people realizing things about each other that they didn't see before. Those moments are unforgettable and they're uncomfortable when we're living through them. Okay. But when artists turn those feelings into music, something remarkable can happen. A song that started as one person's story suddenly becomes something millions of listeners recognize in their own lives. That's what makes music so timeless. Whether it's Carly Simon delivering clever lyrical shade if in You're So Vain, Linda Ronstadt with finding strength in walking away with You're No Good. Prince pushing boundaries and sparking controversy with Darling Nikki, and no doubt capturing heartbreak in Don't Speak. 3 Days Grace, expressing emotional conflict in I Hate Everything About You, Kelly Clarkson, celebrating independence in Since You've Been Gone. Fleetwood Mac, turning one of the most famous breakups in rock history into songs that just blow you away. And of course, then Alanis, bringing raw honesty to the world with hers. Each of these songs show a different side of the same truth. Music often reflects the complicated emotions people experience in relationships and in life. Sometimes those songs are angry, sometimes they're reflective, and sometimes they carry just a little bit of perfectly delivered petty. I mean, I know you've heard some Limp Bizkit break stuff, right? But the reason they last is because listeners recognize the emotions inside them. Music reminds us that everyone goes through moments of frustration, heartbreak, growth, and eventually understanding. Those they feel, ah, and my camera's doing weird things. Pardon me. Thank you all for spending part of your day here with me on AskABee. If you enjoyed today's Petty Monday music journey, make sure you come back tomorrow because we'll be diving into another theme and another conversation together. Until then, take care of yourselves, keep the music playing, and remember that sometimes the best way to deal with complicated emotions is exactly the way these artists did. Turn them into something meaningful. Go over to that radio, turn it up, blast it, full blast. Dance till you cannot sit down. You're so sore. Do whatever you need to get it out of your system. Music will help you do that. I promise you. Get into it, y'all. Y'all get over and see my friends at Tuber Chat, and I will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time. Buzz you later.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why. If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way. We're live every day at 3 p.m. Central now. And don't worry, we didn't change the heat, just the clock. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
A boss be rising.